The Consensus Dream, a psychological thriller audio drama, mind, mystery and mystical realism. The rain wasn't just falling, it was etching the city, carving runnels of reflected neon in the asphalt, turning the world into a smeared watercolor of loneliness. Elara walked, her boots making soft, sucking sounds against the wet pavement, a rhythm that was the only companion to the thrum inside her skull. It was a feeling, not a sound, a persistent, low-grade hum of wrongness, a frequency just outside normal hearing that had been her unwanted familiar for as long as she could remember. It was the sense that the world was a stage play, and she was the only one who could hear the prompter's frantic whispers from the wings, the creak of the sets being changed in the dark. Tonight, the hum was a scream. She'd been chasing a thread, a thing so small most would have dismissed it as a glitch, a coincidence. A page in a library book, a forgotten journal of an obscure 19th-century psychologist, Dr. Alistair Finch. A single line, underlined in faint, trembling ink: "The world is a consensus dream, and the waking mind is the one that sleeps." For weeks, it had echoed in her, a key searching for a lock. And then, the synchronicity. A man on the subway, his face obscured by a dripping hood, muttering the same phrase into the collar of his coat. A graffiti tag, fresh and stark on a wet brick wall, the words, "Consensus Dream," sprayed in frantic silver. A leaf, blown against her window in the storm, caught for a moment in the shape of those two words before disintegrating. It was the universe, not whispering, but shouting. And it had led her here, to this rain-slicked street on the forgotten edge of the city, to a door that shouldn't exist. The address from Finch's journal, 33 Lane, was a myth. City planners insisted the lane had been paved over decades ago. Yet, here it was, a narrow cobbled alley breathing a chill mist between two towering, anonymous buildings. And at its end, a door of dark, oiled wood, devoid of a number, with a tarnished silver knob shaped like a spiral. Her heart was a trapped bird against her ribs. This was it. The source of the hum, the answer to the question she'd been asking her whole life without knowing the words. She reached out, her fingers trembling, not from the cold, but from the sheer tectonic pressure of the moment. The knob was ice cold, yet it seemed to pulse with a deep, slow life of its own. She turned it. The door opened without a sound onto profound darkness. The air that washed over her was ancient, smelling of dust, dried herbs, and something else, ozone, the electric tang of a storm about to break inside one's own mind. She stepped across the threshold, and the door side shut behind her, severing her from the sound of the rain, plunging her into a silence so absolute it was a physical presence. Then, a soft, golden light kindled itself in the center of the room. It was a shop, or a library, or a museum of the mind. Shelves bowed under the weight of books bound in strange materials, what looked like leather, but scaled, cloth that shimmered like twilight, spines with no titles, only intricate, hypnotic patterns. Glass cases held objects that defied categorization, a compass whose needle pointed not north, but to the observer, a mirror that showed not a reflection, but a shifting, cloudy depth, a small, smooth stone that seemed to drink the light around it. And in the center, sitting in a high-backed armchair, was a man. He was ancient, his face a web of lines, but his eyes were preternaturally young, clear and gray as a winter morning. He held a pocket watch, its case open, but the hands were motionless. "Elara," he said. His voice was dry, like pages turning. "You are late. And yet, precisely on time." She froze. "How do you know my name?" "The same way you knew to come here," he replied, closing the watch with a soft click. The hum. The frequency of seeking. It has a signature. Yours has been growing louder for some time. I am Silas. A custodian. A custodian of what? She asked, her voice a whisper in the vast, quiet room. Of the threshold, he said, gesturing around him. This is a place between the waking dream you call reality and the other thing. The source code. Most people sleepwalk through both, their senses dampened, their awareness muted for their own comfort. But a few, like you feel the seams. You hear the static between the stations. He rose, his movements fluid, belying his age, and plucked a book from a shelf. He blew dust from its cover, and the particles hung in the air, sparkling in the golden light, forming constellations for a moment before fading. Dr. Finch was a seeker, too. He got close. Too close. He tried to map the subconscious, to chart its influence on the material world. He believed that focused intention, a truly awakened will, could bend the consensus. Bend reality? Elara breathed, the idea both terrifying and exhilarating. Reality is bendable, Elara. It is soft, impressionable. It responds to the deepest currents of thought and belief. But to change the consensus, you must first break your agreement with it. You must face what the sleeping mind has hidden away in the dark. He fixed her with his piercing gaze. Why have you come? Truly? She thought of the loneliness, the constant feeling of being out of step, the desperate need to understand the rules of a game everyone else seemed to be playing without reading the instructions. I want to know what's real. Silas smiled, a faint, sad curve of his lips. A dangerous wish. To see the world without the veil is a terror few can withstand. It requires looking into the mirror of your own soul, at the monsters and the gods you have created there. Your fear gives them form. Your desire gives them power. They are the architects of your prison. He led her to the back of the room, to an archway shrouded by a heavy, black velvet curtain. This is the atrium of the mind. A focusing chamber. Inside, the consensus dream thins. You will see the world not as you are told it is, but as you truly believe it to be. Your subconscious will make itself known. It will not be gentle. Elara felt a primal fear, a cold hand closing around her spine. Every instinct told her to run. But the hum in her head, that lifelong companion of wrongness, had stilled. For the first time, there was silence. And in that silence, she found a thread of iron, a strength she didn't know she possessed. This was the source. This was the truth she'd been seeking. She nodded. Silas drew the curtain aside. Beyond was not a room, but a vast, impossible space. It was like standing inside a nebula. Swirls of color and shadow pulsed in a deep, star-flecked blackness. There was no floor, yet she felt solid ground beneath her feet. The air thrummed with potential. Remember, Silas's voice echoed from far away. They are your creations. Their power is yours to take back. The curtain fell shut, and she was alone in the cosmos of her own psyche. At first, there was only the beautiful, terrifying chaos. Then, forms began to coalesce from the swirling energies. A shadow detached itself from the darkness, taking the shape of her father, his face a mask of disappointment. You will never be enough, it whispered, its voice the crushing weight of 1,000 failed expectations. You are a mistake. A echo. A ghost in the machine of a real life. The words were a physical blow, and she staggered back, the old, familiar ache of inadequacy flooding her. It felt true. It had always felt true. This was the bedrock of her fear. Another form emerged from her left, a beautiful, terrifying woman with Elara's own face, but twisted by avarice and hunger. "You want everything," it hissed, its voice seductive and corrosive. "Acclaim. Love. Power. You deserve it. Take it. Crush anyone who stands in your way. Your desire is the only law." This, too, felt true. The secret, shameful cravings she buried deep, the parts of herself she deemed ugly and selfish, given form and voice. They circled her, the embodiments of her deepest fear and her most hidden desire, two sides of the same corroded coin. They fed each other. The fear told her she wasn't worthy, and the desire screamed that she must therefore take what she wasn't given. They were a self-perpetuating loop, Ouroboros of suffering that had dictated the course of her life from the shadows. She fell to her knees, the consensus of her own soul crushing her. This was the truth. This was the horrible, naked reality behind the veil. It was madness. It was despair. "Their power is yours, asterisk." Silas's words surfaced through the panic. "To take back." She looked up at the specter of her father, this monument to her own inadequacy. "You're not him," she whispered, her voice raw. "You're my story about him." She looked at the greedy twin. "And you're not my strength. You're the distortion of it." She stood up. The ground solidified beneath her. The act of naming them, of recognizing them as internal constructs and not external truths, changed something. Their forms flickered. The fear monster lunged. "You are nothing." The desire demon clawed at her. "You deserve everything." Elara did not flinch. She took a breath, deep and sure, and found that thread of iron within her again. It was no longer a thread, it was a column. It was a source. It was her. Not her fear, not her desire, but the awareness that witnessed both. "I see you," she said, her voice gaining strength, ringing in the vast space. "You are parts of me. But you are not all of me. Your power is borrowed. I am taking it back." She didn't fight them. She simply stopped believing in them. She withdrew her energy, her attention, her faith. The father specter's face blurred, the features melting into simple shadow. The desire demon's shriek of greed became a faint sigh, dissolving into motes of light. They unraveled, not in an explosion, but in a quiet unmaking, because their existence was contingent on her belief, and that belief had just been revoked. The swirling atrium began to still. The colors softened, the shadows retreated. In the center of it all, where the monsters had been, a new light appeared. It was small, a single, steady flame that seemed to burn from within her own chest. It was not the fiery hunger of desire, nor the cold glare of fear. It was calm. Certain. Unassailable. It was the source of the hum, not as a symptom of wrongness, but as a tuning fork resonating with a fundamental frequency of being. It was her will. Her authentic self. The dreamer, not the dream. The black velvet curtain drew back. Silas stood there, a look of deep knowing in his ancient eyes. He said nothing. He simply nodded. She walked out of the atrium, back into the shop of wonders. She was different. The world was different. It was the same shop, the same rain-lashed city waiting beyond the door, but the filter was gone. The hum was gone, replaced by a profound and singing silence. She could feel the softness of reality now, its malleability. She could feel the immense, sleeping power of the thousands of minds outside, dreaming the world into being with their fears and desires, completely unaware. She turned to Silas. The consensus dream is a choice, he finished. You can choose to agree with the dream of limitation, of fear, of separation. Or you can choose to dream a different dream, from a place of strength and source. It is the hardest work there is, for the sleeping world will resist. But it is the only work that matters. He handed her the small, light drinking stone from the glass case. A reminder. To hold the void. To know the darkness without becoming it. Elara pocketed the stone, its weight comforting and real. She opened the door onto Oblique Lane. The rain had softened to a fine mist. The neon lights still bled their colors onto the street, but it no longer looked like loneliness. It looked beautiful. It looked alive. Every drop of water was a possibility. Every shadow held potential, not threat. She started walking, her footsteps sure on the wet cobbles. The seeker had found not an answer, but a better question. Not a destination, but a path. She knew the monsters were still there, in the dark of every mind, including her own. But she was no longer afraid of the dark. She knew now that the same darkness was the womb of creation, the source of all light, and the infinite field of possibility from which every world, every life, is dreamed into being. And she, awake at last, had just begun to learn how to dream. Did you feel that? The shift in the air, the whisper of something deeper hiding just beneath the surface of the everyday? If Elara's journey into the atrium of the mind resonated with you, if it sparked a question you didn't know you were holding, you're not alone. This is more than a story, it's an invitation. An invitation to question the consensus, to look for the synchronicities writing your name in the rain, and to explore the vast, hidden power of your own awareness. We are just beginning to map these mysteries. New episodes descend into the depths of the human psyche every week, each a new key for a new lock. So, if you're ready to journey further, subscribe to Beyond the Source wherever you get your podcasts. Don't let the thread be lost. Let us know you're out there, listening in the dark. Leave a comment telling us what you felt, what hidden door this story opened for you. Your thoughts are the next piece of the puzzle. Share this episode with someone else who hears the hum, because some truths are too profound to be uncovered alone. And finally, if this story shifted something within you, give it a like. It's a signal, a flare sent up into the night, showing us that the seekers are gathering. That the dream is changing. Until next time, keep listening. And dream wisely.